Okay, I'd now like to introduce some of the members sitting at the head table, or person, not all members, at the head table. As normally we would have the full complement of directors, but due to social distancing requirements, that's not possible. To my immediate left, Gillian Murray, our company secretary, as well as our marketing and HR manager at tTech. To Gillian's left is Mr. Justin Moran, who joined the board in May of this year. Justin, welcome, his first general meeting as a director of tTech. Joan Marie Powell, to Justin's left, who director of tTech. Hortense Gregory Nelson in front. Hortense is our, as I indicated, finance and administration manager. And Mr. Christopher Record in front of me. Chris is the company's chief executive officer. Sitting in the front row, we have Mr. Norman Chen, who is also executive director of tTech. Tracy Ann Spence, who is a non-executive independent director. I should have indicated that Mr. Moran and Ms. Powell are non-executive independent directors. And Leslie Cousins, who is our consultant manager at tTech. We also have our auditors, Ernst & Young, represented by Mr. Winston Robinson here. Winston is actually outside at the moment. I think because of the situation, COVID-19, he's more comfortable and he'll be called in when he has to read the auditor's report. Our recording secretaries from Ernst & Young, represented by Ms. Yvonne Godfrey and Ms. Camille Riley. Outside, our registrar and transfer agents, the Jamaica Central Securities Depository team, were at the door. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome. For today's meeting, I also would like to acknowledge Director Thomas Chin and his contribution to the board while he was a director. As you would be aware, Mr. Chin did resign for personal reasons. But while he was a director of tTech, and he joined the board shortly before we did our IPO, he really made significant contributions and led the audit committee, and really made sure that we were in compliance with all requirements in keeping with the functions of that audit committee. So Tom, he's actually off the island at the moment, but we wish him well and thank him for his contributions. Okay, so I now officially welcome all members present in person or by proxies, as well as invited guests, and commenting briefly on the COVID-19 guidelines. Well, those were actually circulated in the letter that was stated. As we can see, all attendees are required to wear masks. I'll excuse those who are actually speaking at the podium. And we'll ask everybody to maintain appropriate social distancing as the afternoon progresses. The ordinary business of the meeting, I'll move on to. In accordance with the agenda outlined in the notice on page 3 of the 2019 annual report, I'll now proceed with the ordinary business of the 2020 adjourned annual general meeting of tTech Limited. The reports, director's report and accounts. I'm going to ask the company secretary to table the accounts for the financial year ended December 31st, 2019, and the report of the directors thereon.
The accounts and reports of the directors have been tabled, Chairman.
Thank you. And the report of the auditors, next item. And I'm now going to invite Mr. Winston Robinson, representing Ernst & Young Chartered Accountants, to read the independent report of the auditors.
Good afternoon, everybody. Independent auditors report to the members of tTech Limited. Report on the audit of the financial statements. We have audited the financial statements of tTech Limited, the company, which comprise the statement of financial position as at 31st December 2019, the statements of comprehensive income, changes in equity, and cash flows for the year then ended, and notes comprising significant accounting policies and other explanatory information. In our opinion, the accompanying financial statements give a true and fair view of the financial position of the company as at the 31st of December 2019 and of its financial performance and cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with international financial reporting standards and the Jamaican Companies Act. We conducted our audit in accordance with international standards on auditing. Our responsibilities under those standards are further described in the auditor's responsibilities for the audit of financial statements section of our report. We are independent of the company in accordance with International Ethics Standards Board for Accountants Code of Ethics for Professional Accountants, and we have fulfilled our other ethical responsibilities in accordance with the IASBA Code. We believe the audit evidence we have obtained is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for our opinion. Key audit matters are those matters that, in our professional judgment, were of utmost importance in our audit of the financial statements of the current period. These matters were addressed in the context of our audit of the financial statements as a whole and informing our opinion thereon, and we do not provide a separate opinion on these matters. For each matter below, our description of how our audit addressed the matter is provided in that context. We have fulfilled the responsibilities described in the auditor's responsibilities for the audit of financial statements section of our report, including in relation to these matters. Accordingly, our audit included the performance of procedures designed to respond to our assessment of the risk of material misstatements of the financial statements. The results of our audit procedures, including the procedures performed to address the matters below, provide the basis for our audit opinion on the accompanying financial statements. So we look at the key audit matters now. Allowance for expected credit losses. As described in Note 2D1 and in accordance with IFRS 9 financial instruments, the company applies the simplified approach to computing expected credit losses on trade receivables and the general approach for debt instruments. The measurement of ECLs requires management to consider historical credit loss experience and current business conditions adjusted for forward-looking factors such as economic indicators which may impact a debtor's ability to pay. Where the general approach is applied, judgment is used in determining whether there has been a significant increase in credit risk and estimating the probability of default and the loss given default. The ECLs being recorded are therefore considered to be highly subjective. How our audit addressed the key audit matter? Our procedures, amongst others, included the following. We evaluated the techniques and methodologies developed by the company in order to estimate the ECLs and assess their compliance with the requirements of IFRS 9. We assessed the reasonableness of the methodologies and assumptions applied by validating the completeness of the inputs used to derive the loss rates, which are integral to the provision matrix used in determining the ECLs for trade receivables. For financial assets classified as debt instruments and cash equivalents, we corroborated management's assumptions with data from external sources, particularly with respect to the determination of whether there has been a significant increase in credit risk, probabilities of default, and loss given default rates. We also assessed the adequacy of the disclosures in the financial statements. The second key audit matter, revenue recognition under IFRS 15, revenue from contracts with customers. Note 2D2 use of estimates and judgments under the section Revenue Recognition under IFRS 15 details management's judgments when applying the 5-step approach outlined by the standard to contracts with customers as follows. Identify the contracts with a customer. Identify the performance obligations in the contract. Determine the transaction price. Allocate the transaction price to the performance obligations in the contract. And recognize revenue when or as the entity satisfies a performance obligation. The standard also requires management to identify performance obligations in a bundled sale of equipment and installation services and determine the timing of satisfaction of the performance obligations. It also requires management to determine whether it acts as a principal or agent in executing the contracts and if there are significant financing components included in the promised payment amounts. We have obtained and reviewed management's assessment and understood the underlying assumptions used to support the calculations as regards IFRS 15. We also evaluated the appropriateness of the company's revenue recognition policy in comparison to the requirements of the standard. We reviewed management's computations and independently reviewed a sample of contracts and evaluated them in accordance with the 5-step approach as follows. We obtained and reviewed established signed contracts to validate that legitimate contracts exist with customers. We identified relevant performance obligations as stipulated by the contracts. We verified the transaction prices that are explicitly stated in the contracts associated with the relevant performance obligations. We obtained and reviewed invoices on a sample basis along with supporting reports confirming evidence of work carried out and performance obligations met. Additionally, where bundled services are provided, we assessed whether the transaction price should be allocated to each performance obligation. Based on the above, we verified that revenue was properly recognized in the correct period. We also assessed management's assertion that the company acts as a principal for the equipment sold as they exercise control over the related assets, including warranties and software licenses purchased from third parties and resold to customers. Short-term advances received from customers were tested to determine whether any significant financing components were identified. These advances were generally settled within 1 year. We also reviewed the disclosures for appropriateness in accordance with IFRS 15. Other information included in the annual report. Management is responsible for the other information. The other information comprises of information included in the annual report for the year ended 31st December 2019, but does not include the financial statements and our auditor's report thereon. The annual report is expected to be made available to us after the date of the auditor's report. Our opinion on the financial statements does not cover the other information, and we will not express any form of assurance conclusion thereon. In connection with our audit of the financial statements, our responsibility is to read the other information identified above when it becomes available, and in doing so, consider whether the other information is materially inconsistent with the financial statements or knowledge obtained in the audit, or otherwise appears to be materially misstated. Responsibilities of management and the board of directors for the financial statements. Management is responsible for the preparation of financial statements that give a true and fair view in accordance with IFRS and the Jamaican Companies Act, and for such internal control as management determines is necessary to enable the preparation of financial statements that are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. In preparing the financial statements, management is responsible for assessing the company's ability to continue as a going concern, disclosing as applicable matters related to going concern, and using the going concern basis of accounting unless management either intends to liquidate the company or to cease operations, or has no realistic alternative but to do so. The board of directors is responsible for overseeing the company's financial reporting process. Auditors' responsibilities for the audit of the financial statements. Our objectives are to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, and to issue an auditor's report that includes our opinion. Reasonable assurance is a high level of assurance, but is not a guarantee that an audit conducted in accordance with ISAs will always detect a material misstatement when it exists. Misstatements can arise from fraud or error and are considered material if individually or in aggregate they could reasonably be expected to influence the economic decisions taken on the basis of these financial statements. As part of an audit in accordance with ISAs, we exercise professional judgment and maintain professional skepticism throughout the audit. We also identify and assess risk of material misstatements of the financial statements, whether due to fraud or error, design and perform audit procedures responsive to those risks, and obtain audit evidence that is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for our audit opinion. The risk of not detecting a material misstatement resulting from fraud is higher than for one resulting from error, as fraud may involve collusion, forgery, intentional omissions, misrepresentations, or the override of internal control. We obtain an understanding of the internal control relevant to the audit in order to design audit procedures that are appropriate in the circumstances, but not for the purpose of expressing an opinion on the effectiveness of the company's internal control. Evaluate the appropriateness of the accounting policies used and the reasonableness of the accounting estimates and related disclosures made by management. Conclude on the appropriateness of management's use of the going concern basis of accounting, and based on the audit evidence obtained, whether a material misstatement exists related to events or conditions that may cast significant doubt on the company's ability to continue as a going concern. If we conclude that a material uncertainty exists, we are required to draw attention in our auditor's report to the related disclosures in the financial statements, or if such disclosures are inadequate, to modify our opinion. Our conclusions are based on the audit evidence obtained up to the date of our auditor's report. However, future events or conditions may cause the company to cease to continue as a going concern. Evaluate the overall presentation, structure, and content of the financial statements, including the disclosures, and whether the financial statements represent the underlying transactions and events in a manner that presents a true and fair view. We communicate with the Board of Directors regarding, among other matters, the planned scope and timing of the audit and significant audit findings, including any significant deficiencies in internal control that we identified during our audit. We also provide the Board of Directors with a statement that we have complied with the relevant ethical requirements regarding independence, and to communicate with them all relationships and other matters that may reasonably be thought to bear on our independence, and where applicable, related safeguards. From the matters communicated with the Board of Directors, we determined those matters that were of most significance in the audit of the financial statements of the current period and are therefore key audit matters. We describe these matters in our auditor's report unless law or regulation precludes public disclosure about the matter, or when, in extremely rare circumstances, we determine that a matter should not be communicated in our report because the adverse consequences of doing so would reasonably be expected to outweigh the public interest benefits of such communication. Report on the additional requirements of the Jamaican Companies Act. We obtained all the information and explanations which, to the best of our knowledge and belief, were necessary for the purposes of our audit. In our opinion, proper accounting records have been maintained so far as it appears from our examination of those records, and the financial statements, which are in agreement therewith, give the information required by the Jamaican Companies Act in the manner required. The engagement partner on the audit resulting in this independent auditor's report is Winston Robinson. Signed, Ernst & Young, Kingston, Jamaica, February 28, 2020. Thank you.
I thank Mr. Robinson. And members, before taking your questions on the reports and accounts, I'm going to ask the Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Christopher Record, and following him, Mrs. Hortense Gregory Nelson, our Finance Manager, to comment on the financial performance during 2019 and to highlight strategic initiatives being undertaken by the company. Chris?
I want to highlight here today our core values, which the team late last year came together to decide on with the entire management and leadership team pulled together. So over the last year, we ensured that various hiring practices and the various recognition practices were in alignment with these values. We care about people, we're open and honest, we do what it takes, we got each other's backs, and we are continuously improving. And these are, as I said, the core values of the organization as we did in the in last year's management retreat. So, as our chairman stated a while ago, we have a few board members that are here. So I just want to thank the board members that are here for coming. And we do have a board member who has resigned, and we also from the management team would like to thank Tom. He was very specific. He did not mince any words when there was any issues that he had concern around, and we're going to miss that candle from Tom. Our new board member, Justin, thank you very much for joining the team this year, and we hope that you will, similar to Tom, jump in and grab us by the scruff of the neck when when we need a little shaking up, and you give us some advice. So thank you very, very much. So the leadership team that are here with us, a few members of the team. Chairman already did the introductions of myself. So all executive directors highlighted in the middle are in fact here. You came in while we were in the middle of the previous deliberations. Other team members, Leslie, and also our company secretary, Gillian, who's also in charge of marketing and human resources, are also here with us. Other team members may come, not too sure, but we do have supporting team members from the organization that are here. Sam, yes, so Sam is here. Samantha Jones from our sales and marketing team is here supporting us this morning. So as was said, the highlights for the year, Hortense, our finance manager, will go into a little bit more detail, but the highlights for the year is that year over year, 2019 compared to 2018, the company grew approximately 20%, 19.9 to be exact. Revenues of 340.3 million over the period the year before. Profits, however, dropped by around 10% from the previous period. One of the main reasons was, again, our investments in some tools, investments in people, and also the new IFRS rules and regulations contributed to some numbers being handled differently. There are a few slides with some details on that Hortense will take us through. And as a result of the net profits going down, our earnings per share dipped from 0.26 cents per share in 2018 down to 0.23 cents per share in 2019. So I'm going to just take you through a few highlights of some things that we did throughout the year. We're going to talk about some of our marketing activities, some of our customer CSR, corporate social responsibility activities, and then also take a highlight look on outlook for 2020. Now the interesting thing is that because of the pandemic, our AGM was delayed, so a fair amount of the year has in fact passed already. And so, our outlook will encompass some of the things that have happened before so far. So our team continues to grow. And as you see the trend over the last few years, we have 4 years highlighted here. We ended 2019 with 42 persons. as of this meeting right now, we are at around 53 persons, 53 staff members as we continue to grow, as we take on new customers, and as we take on new services, deliver more services to the existing customers that we have. One of the features that we employ in the organization as we continue to improve with our tools and technologies is almost a continuous pulse on the organization as it relates to team engagement. We use an application and a technology called Office Vibe, pretty unique to us. As a matter of fact, we actually received some recognition from it from the HR Association a few years ago. And we take the pulse of the organization on a literally real-time basis. So at the end of 2019, because our focus here is 2019, we were at 7.4, and it's out of 10. The scores are out of 10 in terms of these recordings. And you can see over the years that we've been measuring it, where the numbers have trended. Now, an interesting thing is that, and we didn't have it here because this focus was for 2019, is that during the COVID period, we did see the actual effect on work from home. We saw when the remote work was brought back into the office, we did see those numbers trend, and next year this time we can feature some of those numbers. Right? Some of the activities that were done with respect to team and continue our team growth was a program that we started very late in 2018 and continued in the first quarter of 2019 called Engage and Grow. And the Engage and Grow, we see an image there that was a graduation of that event, where one of the programs that we employed at the organization was to get the entire team involved in all different aspects of what's going on with the company. So just not only their job that they do, but just taking on and understanding other areas and having certain things like leadership acts and some of these things that will get them excited about potential and where they may want to move in the future. So that was the whole engage and grow session. Other things that we do, Other things that we do within the organization, and we do pretty well and are a little bit different. We try our very best to focus on health and wellness. It's something that we promote within the organization. We encourage our team members to take part in 5Ks and our tTech Fit, because during the period of 2019, we employed a fitness coach to come into the organization. And we had events, fitness events every Tuesday and Thursday evening. We also try our very best to, on a weekly basis, make sure that we do have the right kind of diet and fruits for snacks in the organization. There's a fair amount of team building and bonding exercises that the organization partakes in doing. And the trainings on continuous improvements are something that, as it said, it's continuous. Work-life balance is something that very important to us, because again, it's feedback out of the Engage and Grow system that we realize that is an area that requires some action, and we have been actually working on it. So very early in the organization's life cycle, even before us taking on these various trainings which highlight some of these needs, the organization had a policy to give your birthday off as a personal day for free. And so that's something that we continue to do. And the remote work option, interestingly enough, that tTech, we've been doing remote work from, Teddy, from almost close to inception, within the first 3-4 years of inception. So when the protocols called for remote work, it was almost just a push of a button, almost instantaneous for us to do, because of the tools and technologies that we had in place. The organization continues to recognize team members and commend team members as part of our culture. It's something that anyone that gets any commendation from within or without the organization, it is shared by all. So, some of the community work that we've been doing. One of our largest customer is a Grayscale group of companies, and that organization continues to host a number of activities downtown Kingston. And because we are also downtown Kingston as our home office, we tend to support, celebrate, contribute to downtown Kingston activities where possible. Kingston Creative Group decided to research globally as to some of the things that help to uplift general downtown areas worldwide, and creating art villages was one of them. So when they came to us to support this activity, it was actually a no-brainer for us to do. And I was going to actually ask somebody to show a demonstration of it, but you know what? won't bother do it right now. We got involved with this mural and a number of other activities with them because we were one of what they call their first 50 supporters in their downtown venture. In that this specific mural, if you download the app that's called Artivive and you hold it up on it, the mural comes alive on your phone. And so it's something that we had hundreds of people downtown at the launch, and there was a lot of excitement around it. And as a matter of fact, I actually tested it earlier, and it works very well still. Artivive, hold it up in front of it, and it gives the whole explanation. The other activities that we supported and worked along with the Grace Kennedy Group was the Grace Kennedy's Foundation Beach Cleanup. And just almost a year to the date, because this happened last year, September 21st, with respect to the fact that our home is actually on the harbor downtown, and we want to ensure that we participate in activities that are in this area. The other activity that we do, so that was with Grace Foundation. This is the Grace and Staff Community Development Foundation now, where we also support, provide gifts, and we participate in sometimes judging these competitions. So this is the annual essay competition, and for the fourth year, last year being the fourth year, we supported and we were part of it. Marketing events are very, very important to us because this is where we generate leads, we share and remind and educate and inform our prospects as how tTech deliver value to our customers. And last year we took part in a large number of activities, just highlighting a few right here. The Jamaica Stock Exchange annual event, that investor event. We did cybersecurity presentations there. Every year around October, the government of Jamaica, through their cybersecurity incident response team, has a awareness month, and we are heavily involved in supporting that, and we're going to be also supporting that again this year with our team. And then of course we've been doing a number of what we call our CIO quarterly insights. A few of them we did that last year. Our biggest event though for the year is our what we call tTech by tTech, which is event, again, inform, educate, one of its kind in Jamaica, where we bring all our customers, our partners, and potential customers in the room to talk about what matters around technology, and again, remind our customers how tTech delivers value. And it's massively important to us. This year we had to go very, very creative because just the week before the event was happened, March 10th in Jamaica, we had patient zero. And then of course, the day after, March 11th, the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a pandemic, and so we had to, using the often repeated word, we had to pivot quickly and do an operational pivot to go online and move the TechCon online, which we actually did. So we've been doing internal work continuously as one of our values. We are continuously improving, and the work that the team did internally was recognized externally by some of our partners. And winning this award, which is the Customer Service Association Service Excellence Award in association with PSOJ, was very rewarding to the team that we've been working continuously in improving our response. People hire managed service companies and external IT service companies because of response. And it's something that we've been doing our very, very, very best to improve this response to our customers. Other awards that we won, again, the Fitness Award from the Jamaica Stock Exchange had a 5K downtown, and tTech was actually one of the highest ranking publicly traded companies that were part of it. We're very, very surprised by that phone call. Let's say that we're actually one of the top 3. Other award that we won last year was the American Chamber of Commerce Excellence in Outstanding Corporate Social Responsibility, based upon the range of activities that we have done throughout the year. We're also recognized by the Human Resource Management Association of Jamaica, HR Innovation Award, around using that tool that I mentioned in terms of our continuous pulse on the engagement of our organization. We were recognized internationally also as being one of the top managed service providers globally by an international organization called Channel Futures, which has an MSP 501 rating. It's been over the last, I think it's 12 years that they've been doing it, and it's our second time being featured in their top 500 globally, and we're very happy and proud of that. So as I said, high-level outlook for 2020, just to give you a few highlights as to some of the things that we've been doing. COVID-19 has been sucking the air out of the room. And so our response has been immediate. We immediately created and activated and expanded our tTech Health, Wellness and Safety Committee, chaired by Monish, and Leslie is a team member. Monish is one of our team members in the HR. She's not here right now, but Leslie's on that team along with other team members. We try to make sure that we have someone from every department part and parcel of that team. And we ensure that we started doing, again, following all the government guidelines that were suggested to us. And the instant that the Prime Minister made the announcement of work from home, we immediately triggered it. And of course, being a technology organization, we got very, very, very busy during that point in time. And a lot of the tools that we were using internally, we were asked to come in and implement those tools for our customers. We did in fact gain some customers during that period of time, because there are people who realize that this technology thing is not as simple as some people make them believe, and they were asked to come in and help them implement some of these tools. So at a high level, you know, the general protocols are there. With respect to, we had to do a mapping of the office, work out the square footage, figure out how many people could actually be in the office at the same time. We have X marks a spot all over the places that people can sit at this point in time to ensure that there's adequate 6-foot square social distancing between each team member. There are masks provided. We have sanitation stations all over the office. So our COVID response was immediate and effective. And so far, we have to knock on wood that we are 100% COVID-free, right? Next slide. As far as we know. Yes, Chairman, I hear it loud and clear. So one of the things that the team decided that we needed to invest in the year was just kind of look around to say, okay, you know, we have year over year done our strategic planning session at the end of the year, and you know, how do we now ensure that we are effectively executing on the strategy? And so we employed some tools and techniques, and you know, brought in some business coaches to help us during late last year. So we're actually really and truly effecting it fully this year. It takes 2 years to be implemented. And we had dubbed it internally within the team the tTech LEAP program, Lead, Engage, Achieve, Perform. And throughout this, there's a whole range of components that are involved in it. First, regrouping and taking a look at the culture and looking at the vision and ensuring that really and truly it is where we want to go, and it makes sense with how we execute and what we're doing. So the vision component as part of the lead was something that we had to revamp, review, and ensure that it was the right thing for us. The next thing is the people. We had to do a deep dive review of our entire team. We have a bunch of processes in place now to ensure that, you know, our team gets it, they get the job that they have, and they really want it, and actually, more importantly, that they have the capacity and the capabilities to actually do this job. Once the vision and the people are in place, the next thing is to understand is that if we're looking at the right data, we're measuring the right things, and we have our scorecards and all of those things in place, and those are what we use to drive, manage, execute on our strategy. Once all of those things are in place, what you find happening is that now the issues start to surface. People start to ask questions about how can we improve that, how can we improve this. So we have a methodology now that we've put in place that we call our issues list, that every single solitary week, every Tuesday morning at 7:30, the management team meets and we look at the issues list and we dig through them very deeply and then solve them. In doing that, we ensure that every new process that we put in place to solve that is adequately resourced and staffed, and we ensure that those are actually the right processes that will help us to deliver on our strategy. And then last but not least is that all of this together has to have some traction on the ground, right? So at a high level, this is a program that we will continue to execute over the next 24-month period. As I say, about 8 or 9 months have gone before. So, you know, just as a reminder, I mentioned about improved response time, so we're doing work to do that for 2020, continuous training of our team, upgrading of our technologies. We've been doing a fair amount of investment in technology and ensuring that we can remotely, because as we grow and scale, it doesn't make sense for our business to be throwing more people at the problem. We have to throw technology at the problem. Always looking for mutual beneficial partnerships, looking to either acquire, looking for strategic partnerships that are out there that are helping us again to deliver on the strategy. And of course, we continue. COVID has put a big blooper, barrier in place right now, but we continue to look outside of Jamaica for revenues. One of the things we'd like to announce at this time, as a pre-announcement, if you can call it that, because we're out looking in 2020 as to what we're going to do. tTech will be providing some sort of a data protection, IT compliance as a service. Why is this necessary, and why has this come about as something that we believe is important for us? So Jamaica has finally gone through all the processes of passing our own Data Protection Act. And as a result of that, we are getting questions from customers and prospective customers around, how can you folks help us with being IT compliant? So the data protection has 3 high-level components. There's a legal component. Folks will have to go to their lawyers to make adjustments with certain of their contracts and things in place. There is a new component, which is the data privacy component. And so, our resources in Jamaica around data privacy experts are limited at best. And we have partnered with an external party and an internal party in Jamaica to ensure that we are understanding it fully. And then most importantly, we understand the IT component, and one of our key expertise in this area is IT security. And so we are taking all of that together, and we're going to be going to the market very, very shortly with our data protection, IT compliance as a service. Will that be the final name? I have no idea. I just threw that up there because it is what it is right now. We may come up with some fancy name, DPO as a service, DPO IT as a service, who knows. But we are getting a lot of requests for this, and we understand how to do it. And we are actually beginning the process of doing it internally for our office right now. Right, Leslie? Okay. So we're starting that process right now. So it's very, very exciting for us, and this should keep us, one of the things that keep our security team very, very busy for the coming future. So I will now hand over to our finance manager, Hortense, to talk about our numbers. Hortense?
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, shareholders and visitors. We will now present a report of the financial highlights of tTech Limited for 2019. In 2019, we saw growth in both our managed services and our consulting services. And as Chris had mentioned before, revenues grew by 19.9% for over 2018. In regards to our revenue performance, our revenue, which consists of both recurring contracts and projects, as a result of the mixed nature of this business, we will see bumps in our revenue over time, as reflected here. In 2019, tTech earned 8.9% of its overall revenue from new customers, compared to 2018. In terms of our net profit performance, the net profit attributable to shareholders was 24.7 in 2019, while earnings per share was 0.23 cents. In regards to the impact on our revenues, we were impacted by the IFRS 16, which is leases, which resulted in a finance charge of 2.5 million, which decreased our net profit, and this is reflected on the financial statements. In regards to our asset and shareholders' equity, during the year, total assets increased by 17% to 292.7 million, while our shareholders' equity increased by 9% to $216.7 million. This resulted from increase in other receivables, property, and equipment, and also in our current liabilities. We also saw improvements in our cash resources, which increased by 13.2% to 40.6 million at the end of the year. tTech continues to maintain a low leverage with no debt, which reflects the company's business model of providing services which negate costly fixed expenditures. Hence, our expenditures are mainly seen monthly. The arena in 2019 was impacted, the financial arena, the financial reporting aspect of it was impacted by the introduction of the new IFRS 16, and this allowed us to recognize on our balance sheet right-of-use asset as well as lease liability, and this was shown on our financial statements. The IFRS 16 replaced IAS 17, and note 2 on our financials on pages 12 to 13 reflect the differences and the changes that we had made. The IFRS also, this is the note 10 on pages 39 to 40, shows further details on the total impact that we recognize in our comprehensive income of depreciation and interest expenses, which would have impacted our bottom line. In terms of our share price to date, we recognize that over a period of time, our shares from date of launching in 2016 have seen a high of 6.89, and as of 10 September, when we would have done our presentation, we're at 4.71, which is a high over June 2020. So, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Hortense. At this time now, we'll take any questions that any members may have in regard to the financial statements, the audited accounts, as well as the reports of, or the presentations by our CEO and finance manager. So, any questions? Mr. Bloomfield, can you please use the microphone and identify yourself?
Pleasant good afternoon. Lanzel Bloomfield is the name, shareholder. Mr. Chair, I have 2 questions, 2 concerns. First of all, I'll deal with one of my concerns. It has to do with the trading of the stock. It seems to me that the stock is illiquid and very little trading take place. So what is being done to sort of shore up that situation? Another concern has to do with, I know we're supposed to be discussing the amendments of the Article of Association for Electronic AGM. I don't want anyone to get the feeling that I'm going to stand in the way. I do support it, but I have a concern, and it goes across the board to many of the situations that I've seen. The Companies Act stipulates that the shareholder ought to attend in person and vote at their AGM. And I do support, like I said, for the amendments to have electronic AGM. But my greatest concern is this. Most of the amendments that I've seen doesn't stipulate or as a caveat to say at what point does a company uses an electronic means to have an AGM versus that of holding the AGM for the shareholder to attend in person. And I would like the company, in amending these articles, to take that into consideration. That it ought to reflect, for example, if there is a period of disaster or an outbreak of contagious diseases such as what we have now. It can't be a carte blanche situation where, because for the next, if you leave it like that, it can be challenged because you will have 2 situations where your articles are saying you can have your AGM in person or you can have it electronic means. So a company can decide for the next 4 or 5 years we will have our AGM by electronic means. And the shareholder can't do anything about that. So I just want to put it out here to say that, yes, as a shareholder, I support it for you to have the meetings via, but it has to be under certain conditions. It can't be left open so that at any time, because that is the interpretation of what that would become in law, even though I am not a trade attorney. Now, for my two questions here.
Oh, thought they want me to address these two while they may still be fresher in everybody's mind.
Okay.
And then can deal with the questions, because as you said, these are concerns you have noted. Let me deal with the second one, which is the amendment to the Articles of Association that will be considered at the EGM. We actually are recognizing in these changes that the Companies Act has also to be changed to allow meetings to be held by electronic means. As you pointed out quite rightly, the Companies Act currently requires shareholders to attend in person. So we are making these changes to the articles in anticipation of a change to the Companies Act. And in fact, there is a phrase in there saying that insofar as permitted by law, a general meeting may be held wholly or partly by electronic means. So we recognize that even though we change our articles, it would still not be legal for us to hold an electronic meeting. And we certainly will bear in your mind your comments about when such meetings would be held. I think the intent, though, is to create the opportunity that we can hold meetings, maybe not fully electronic or virtually, but allow for what we think of as a hybrid or a blended meeting, where some people are attending in person and others will be able to attend electronically. So, for instance, we do have shareholders who reside outside of Jamaica, and currently they actually cannot be present at such a meeting. So that's one of the things. The second concern, the trading of the stock, it is something that has come up at previous meetings. The directors have looked at it, and at this point, we have contemplated issuing, sorry, Tracy, help me here. Well, additional shares through, we've looked at various mechanisms to issue additional shares. The question of the liquidity of stock in Jamaica it's a concern, not just for tTech. And in particular, you see it very significantly in companies traded on the junior market. Why? Because companies that traded on the junior market to enter or to be a member of the junior market, what happened was that the companies had to issue just up 20% or more of their issued stocks. And as a result, you find that these companies were privately held before. They issued call it the bare minimum, or very slightly over that 20%. And some of those shares were also taken up by institutions. So as a result, the number of shares that or the number of shareholders that you have is not necessarily that high. And then let's call it the smaller sharedholders, unfortunately, hold few stocks, and the stocks don't trade as readily. In fact, one of the things that I've seen this year because of the pandemic is you have these huge swings in stock prices on trading a very, very small number of shares. I think tTech's share price actually dropped to like $4.20 last week on the trading of 120 shares. And this week we are back up to $5 and what are we at? Like, I don't know, $5.50, $5.75. Again, relatively small numbers of shares. So it is a concern, Mr. Bloomfield, and it is something that I think we look at it, I will admit that it has not been a focus this year. Our focus this year has been on grappling with the pandemic, trying to make sure that, as I said to Chris, don't lose any money, manage your cash flow, make sure we don't run out of cash. And that has really been our priority, and I think we have been able to achieve that. But I will take your concerns about the liquidity of the tTech stock back to the directors.
Let me just add that one of our major shareholders and also investor in an investment house called this morning. He said, Chris, you know, I don't know what anybody talking about, that tTech is one of the few stocks since the pandemic has started that has actually have a general trending up in the right direction. And as of right now, Chairman, the stock is at 580, which is actually pretty decent within the conditions that we are. So, yes, what you're saying is correct, but there is actually some positive in there somewhere that we need to continue to work on.
Understood. It's almost the only performing tech company on the market, and I would go with a tTech anytime.
Thank
but
you.
I just want to see the greater volume of shares so that we'll be able to go home feeling rest assured that we can really buy the volumes that we really want.
Right, yes, a good point. I will say this is my personal opinion. This is not an opinion of necessarily the board, the directors as such, right? But I do say to people that when you invest in a junior market company, two things. Invest for the long term, because when the companies are developing, they're not mature companies like the Grace Kennedys or the NCBs and so on. And you have to invest for the long term. So you have to, and expect some volatility, because we have not managed to establish ourselves where we can predictably or very regularly predict, continuous massive growth, that march to the northeast corner, as it's called. But we continue to try to develop strategies and execute on those strategies that will ensure some continued growth and that the company can continue to operate profitably.
Understood, Mr. Chair. So my last two questions here is page 82, note 5, account receivables. Mr. Chair, for the 0 to 30 days credit period, there is an amount of 27 million outstanding, down from 39 million of that of 2018. Even though your trade receivable is for a term of 10 days. Therefore, what is being done to further reduce your trade receivables?
Okay. I'm going to ask Hortense Nelson to respond to that. So you have another question?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Page 91, note 16, expenses by nature. Please clarify this line item called technical fees, services and products, which has climbed to 95.17 million in 2019, over 63 million of that of 2018.
Okay. All right. I think Hortense, can you take those two, please?
Thank you for those two questions. I'll take the one on page 83 first for the receivables. Page 82. So in regards to what we are doing, we have been meeting with our customers. In terms of, sometimes we see something that says 0 to 30 days. It has to do with also our billing period. So meeting with our customers, we have been having dialogue. We continue to also work with them in terms of ensuring that we have payment plans in place if necessary. But we continue to, and we don't see where any of these also will be uncollectible. So we have managed to bring in most of what would have been outstanding at this time. The other question on page 91 for technical fees, services and products. The business that tTech undertakes, we had mentioned it earlier that as a business who manages most of its cost on a monthly basis, this is where our primary expenses are that support the business that we deliver in terms of the tools and any subcontracted fees that we have to use to deliver the service that we bill as revenue.
Not quite understand that.
So for example, we do a lot of our work remotely. So for example, even now when we have to monitor our customer sites, there are tools that we pay for which are included in these costs. So these are the tools that we use to monitor the sites remotely, which we have a lot of them on subscription, as well as we have some amortization costs, which we bill each month. Yeah, and also when we have project costs, if we have to use like subcontractors, which we do on a lot of our projects, these costs are also included here as an expense.
So let me just also add some context to that number. When you have an organization, let's say it's 50 to 100 people that have signed up with us. In the past, let's say 8 years ago, 9 years ago, we may have had to hire, let's say 6 or 7 more people to support all the various things we do for the customer. What we now do is employ technology instead to go in. So we need to hire maybe 3 people instead of 8. But more importantly, is that whilst we're able to deliver, let's say, remote management for their desktops and servers, we're now able to do remote management for desktops and servers, add cybersecurity, add a range of other services, so to keep the competition at bay, because we have to be adding more and doing more for the customer. And these are the tools and technologies that we employ. And all of these tools and technologies come as monthly recurring costs in the business also. So as we grow, this number will grow, right? But we continue to negotiate every single year with the vendors to say, look, we're in Jamaica, give us the Latin America, Caribbean, Jamaica discount. And they've been working with us, because we have actually gotten bigger discounts more than most people in North America.
Understood.
Right?
Thank you very much.
Good.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Bloomfield, for your observations and those questions. I appreciate your review of the not just the accounts but the notes to generate those questions. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Hortense. Do we have any further questions? No? All right. Before we move to the resolution, I'd also like to recognize Sophianne Edwards, manager of the Ernst & Young audit team, who joined us, I think, when Winston was reading his report, and also Mr. Hugh Allen, executive director of tTech. So I'd now like to ask a shareholder to propose resolution number 1, that the audited accounts for the year ended December 31, 2019, together with the director's report and auditor's report thereon, be and are hereby adopted. I have a proposer. Leslie Cousins, thank you. And a seconder? Mr. Gordon Christopher Record, thank you. Thank the proposer and the seconder, and I'll now put resolution number 1 to the meeting for adoption. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? None. I declare resolution number 1 carried. Thank you. The next item in the notice was dealing with the reappointment of the auditors. Messrs. Ernst & Young of 8 Olivia Road, Kingston 8, have agreed to continue as auditors of the company. May I have a proposer and a seconder for resolution number 2, that Messrs. Ernst & Young be reappointed auditors of the company in accordance with section 154 of the 2004 Companies Act, and that their remuneration be fixed by the directors for the ensuing year. Can I have a proposer? Mr. Record, seconded by Mr. Allen. Thank both proposer and seconder. Now put resolution number 2 to the meeting. Those in favor? That sounds very weak. Those in favor? Oh, well, it was masked. Those against? I declare resolution number 2 carried. In 2019, the company did pay an interim dividend, and we are now going to deal with the 4th item. Is it the 4th or the 3rd item on the notice? Okay. I'd like to have a proposer and a seconder for resolution number 3, that the interim dividend of 6.5 cents paid on the 14th day of June 2019 be and is hereby ratified and declared as final, and that no further dividend would be paid for the year ended December 31, 2019. Proposed Leslie Cousins, seconded by Norman Chen. Thank you both. Put resolution number 3 to the meeting. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? None. I declare resolution number 3 carried. Okay, the next item is the re-election of directors. And pursuant to Articles 102 of the company's Articles of Incorporation, the retiring directors eligible for re-election are Mr. Hugh Allen, Mr. Hugh Philip Alexander, and myself, Edward Alexander. However, in the spirit of good corporate governance practices, I'm going to ask Mr. Christopher Record, to preside over the re-election of directors as I am being re-elected. Chris?
Okay, may I have a shareholder to propose that the resolutions 4A to 4C to re-elect the directors for your company to be taken en bloc? Leslie Cousins, proposer. May I have a shareholder to second this? Mr. Bloomfield. Thank you. I thank the shareholders proposing and seconding the motion, and I put the motion to re-elect all 3 directors en bloc to the meeting. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. I declare the resolution carried. May I have a shareholder to propose that the retiring directors Hugh Allen, Hugh Philip Alexander, Edward Alexander be and are hereby re-elected the directors of the company. Proposing? Joan Marie Powell. Seconded? Hortense Gregory Nelson. Thank the shareholders proposing and seconding. I'll now put the motion to re-elect the directors to the meeting. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Chairman, please resume the meeting. Welcome back to the board, sir.
Tricky for a moment. Thank you, Chris. Okay, we have an item of special business, the director's remuneration. I am going to ask the members to approve the director's compensation paid for the year ending December 31st, 2019. So I'm going to ask a shareholder to propose resolution number 5, that the amount of $1,743,000 included in the audited accounts of the company for the year ended December 31st, 2019 as fees for their services as directors be and is hereby approved. I have a proposer, Mr. Bloomfield. Thank you. Seconded by Mr. Norman Chen. Both. And now put resolution 5 to the meeting. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? None. Ayes have it, so I declare resolution number 5 carried. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the ordinary business of the meeting. I thank everyone for attending this 2020 reconvened annual general meeting of tTech Limited. As per previous communication, we know that there's going to be an extraordinary general meeting that we called primarily to review or to amend the company's articles of incorporation. That meeting will be convened immediately after we terminated this meeting. Yvonne, do I have to have someone move for termination of this meeting? Eh? All right. Before I actually ask for the meeting to be terminated, I'd just like to thank everyone for coming to this AGM. Thanks for taking the time in these very unusual times that we are in. Every time we step outside, we actually do expose ourselves to risk, and I think nearly all of us do know or know of someone fairly close who actually has been affected by this COVID-19 virus. I do thank everyone for attending, and I ask all members, please, if you could stay for the EGM that is going to be convened immediately after. So can I also have someone move for the termination? Mr. Record, seconded by Mr. Allen. Those in favor? Those against? Okay, so this 2020 annual general meeting of tTech Limited is now terminated. Thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to start the extraordinary general meeting. Notice was circulated for us to convene this meeting on this 18th day of September 2020. So, in accordance with tTech Limited's Articles of Incorporation, 3 members present in person or by proxy constitute a quorum. It's Article 58. So, Madam Secretary, can you confirm that we have a quorum?
Chairman confirming that we have a quorum.
Thank you. As I think everybody is aware, my name is Edward Alexander. I'm Executive Chairman of the company, and I'll be chairing this extraordinary general meeting of your company today. So I now call this meeting to order. Our shareholders stand and use a microphone provided when speaking. And as usual, shareholders are asked to state their names clearly when either proposing or seconding a resolution or for any other reason. Questions will only be taken on the business outlined in the notice of this meeting. The notice of the meeting was circulated, so I'm going to ask a shareholder to propose another shareholder to second the motion that the notice convening this extraordinary general meeting on September 18, 2020 at 3:30 p.m. having been previously circulated be taken as read. I have a proposer, Mr. Record, and the seconder, Mr. Bloomfield. Thank you. Those in favor? Those against? Okay, I declare the motion carried. Madam Secretary, can you advise how many valid proxies we have received for this meeting?
Mr. Chairman, 11 valid proxies are received and are available at the JCSD for inspection.
Okay, JCSD being our company registrar.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now all directors in attendance at this extraordinary general meeting were also in attendance at the adjourned or the reconvened annual general meeting held previously. So I welcome all members present in person or by proxies, as well as invited guests. I now move on to the ordinary business of the meeting. As had been indicated in the notice, or in the letter accompanying the notice, and in the notice we do have a reappointment of a director. That's the first item of business for this meeting. And pursuant to Articles 108 of the company's Articles of Incorporation, Mr. Justin Moran was appointed to the Board of Directors after the 2019 annual general meeting held last year. Mr. Moran was appointed a director of the company on May 25, 2020, and was therefore eligible to retire at the annual general meeting, the 2020 annual general meeting just held. However, his re-election was excluded from the notice that was circulated on May 6, 2020, so his reappointment was not included in the annual general meeting, and we will now seek approval for the reappointment of Mr. Moran. So, in keeping with Article number 108 of the company's Articles of Incorporation, Mr. Justin Moran was appointed to the Board of Directors after the 2019 annual general meeting held last year, and has retired as a director, but has made himself available for re-election. So I now would ask a shareholder to propose resolution number 1, that retiring director Justin Moran be and is hereby elected a director of the company. I have a proposal, to record, seconded by Mr. Bloomfield. Thank both of you, and I now put resolution number 1 to the meeting. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? None. I declare resolution number 1 carried. Thank you very much, everyone. The special resolution, we'll now consider this special resolution to amend the Articles of Incorporation of the company. All right, just by way of prefacing, I'm actually going to read all the proposed changes. I was advised that I should, so you'll have to bear with my monotone for a while. But I am going to ask a shareholder to propose a special resolution number 2, which is being put to the members because we wish to put the company in a position to be able to hold virtual or partial virtual general meetings. Not just, by the way, Mr. Bloomfield, it's not just annual general meetings, but general meetings that we're looking at having adjustments. And as was indicated in the discussion at the annual general meeting, these are changes that we are making in anticipation of changes to the Companies Act that would allow shareholders to participate in general meetings other than being there in person. So I will now going to read the amendments that we're asking the members to consider. The resolution actually states that the Articles of Incorporation of the company be and are hereby amended by amending the definition, Articles 55, 58, 63, 65, 67, and 69 as follows, with the proposed amendments that were shown in bold and or strikeout in the notice convening the extraordinary general meeting. The electronic means. Any method of dispatch or communication of audio-only material, still or moving visual only, and or audio-visual material, data and or textual material, or other data which involves the use of communications technology or equipment having electrical, digital, magnetic, wireless, optical, electromagnetic, photographic, or similar capabilities. And the words that were struck out from the previous definition in this case were sounds, documents, maps, photography, graphs, plans, or other data which involves the use of equipment or technology having electrical, digital, magnetic, wireless, optical, electromagnetic, photographic, or similar capabilities, including but not limited to facsimile machines, email sent via computers, and scanning devices. Article 55. An annual general meeting and a meeting called for the passing of a special resolution shall be called by at least 21 days' notice in writing or by way of electronic means. And a meeting of the company, other than an annual general meeting or a meeting for the passing of a special resolution, shall be called by at least 14 days' notice in writing or by way of electronic means. The notice shall be exclusive of the day on which it is served or deemed to be served, and of the day for which it is given, and shall specify the place, whether physical or virtual, and in brackets, by electronic means, the day and hour of the meeting, and, in case of special business, the general nature of that business, and shall be given in manner hereinafter mentioned or in such other manner, if any, as may be prescribed by the company in general meeting, to such persons as are, under the regulations of the company, entitled to receive such notices from the company. Provided that a meeting of the company shall, notwithstanding that it is called by shorter notice than that specified in this regulation, be deemed to have been duly called if it is so agreed. A. In the case of a meeting called as the annual general meeting by all members entitled to attend and vote thereat, and B. In the case of any other meeting by a majority in number of the members having a right to attend and vote at the meeting, being a majority, together holding not less than 95% in the nominal value of the shares given that right. Article number 58. No business shall be transacted at any general meeting unless a quorum of members is present at the time when the meeting proceeds to business, save as herein otherwise provided. 3 members present in person or by proxy shall be a quorum, except in the case where there are only 2 members, then the quorum shall be 2 members, or in the case where there is only 1 member, in which event the quorum shall be 1 member. Subject to the approval of a simple majority of the directors, at least 51% of the directors, and insofar as permitted by law, a general meeting may be held wholly by electronic means or partly by electronic means, and partly at a physical location with members attending in person. A member who participates in a general meeting that is held either wholly or partly by electronic means is deemed to be present at the general meeting and shall count to constitute a quorum. Any general meeting which is held wholly or partly by electronic means shall be deemed to have been convened and held in Jamaica and shall be governed by the laws of Jamaica. Article number 63. At any general meeting, a resolution put to the vote of the meeting shall be decided on a show of hands or equivalent if the meeting is held by electronic means, unless a poll is before or on the declaration of the result of the show of hands, or the equivalent of the meeting is held by electronic means demanded. A, by the chairman, or B, by at least 3 members present in person or by proxy, or C, by any member or members present in person or by proxy and representing not less than 1/10 of the total voting rights of all the members having the right to vote at the meeting, or D, by a member or members holding shares in the company conferring a right to vote at the meeting, being shares on which an aggregate sum has been paid up, equal to not less than 1/10 of the total sum paid up on all the shares conferring that right. Unless a poll be so demanded, a declaration by the chairman that a resolution has, on a show of hands, or the equivalent if the meeting is held by electronic means, been carried or carried unanimously, or by a particular majority, or lost, and an entry to that effect in the book containing the minutes of the proceedings of the company shall be conclusive evidence of the fact without proof of the number of or proportion of the votes recorded in favor of or against such resolution. The demand for a poll may be withdrawn. Article number 65. In the case of an equality of votes, whether on a show of hands or the equivalent if the meeting is held by electronic means, or on a poll, the chairman of the meeting at which a show of hands or the equivalent if the meeting is held by electronic means takes place or at which the poll is demanded and shall be entitled to a second or casting vote. Article number 67. Subject to any rights or restrictions for the time being attached to any class or classes of shares, on a show of hands, or the equivalent if the meeting is held by electronic means, every member present in person shall have 1 vote, and on a poll, every member present in person or by proxy shall have 1 vote for each share for which he is the holder. Article number 69. A member of unsound mind, or in respect of whom an order has been made by any court having jurisdiction in lunacy, may vote whether on a show of hands or the equivalent if the meeting is held by electronic means or on a poll by his committee, receiver, or other person in the nature of a committee or receiver appointed by that court, and any such committee, receiver, or other person may on a poll vote by proxy. Ladies and gentlemen, those are the changes, proposed changes to company's articles of incorporation, as I said, primarily to put us in a place or put us in a position to be able to hold virtual or partially virtual meetings once the Companies Act have been suitably amended. So, may I have a proposer for resolution number 2? The record, seconded by Mr. Allen. Thank you. I now put resolution number 2 to the meeting. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? None. I declare resolution number 2 carried. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the ordinary business of this extraordinary general meeting of tTech Limited. I thank everyone for attending. I don't know if there are any refreshments left, but there may very well be, so please help yourself, and I ask everyone to please continue to keep safe, observe all the protocols that the government has asked us to observe, and let us all keep safe so that we can see each other at next year's annual general meeting or any such general meetings to be convened. Thank you very much.